Hey everybody, it's Cory from CoryBakerFilmmaker.com, and I just saw Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, written by Dan Hageman, Kevin Hageman, Guillermo del Toro, Marcus Dunstan, Patrick Melton, original novel by Alvin Schwartz, and directed by Overdal. So I caught this flick at the Alamo Drafthouse, Los Angeles. Now, for the since I started this review, and I knew that the Alamo Drafthouse was coming, I kept talking about how excited I was because it's one of the few places where you can sort of guarantee yourself the best version of the movie-going experience because of how dictatorial they are about talkers. This experience was not that. I was a little bit disappointed. There were people behind me who continued to talk the entire time, and not just like little odds and ends. It was commentary the whole entire time. I talked to the manager afterwards and let him know, and he had admitted to me that he had been told that there were people talking, but whenever people went in, they weren't talking then. I don't know how that would be possible, but not the best experience at the Alamo Drafthouse. I would not, it's not going to keep me from going, but I will say that, you know, a big part of the experience of going to the theater is knowing that there's not going to be talking. And if there is, any theater I go to where they allow people to just continuously talk, I don't go see movies there after it happens a couple times. So I'm willing to let this one fly because they're brand new. They just opened. They're still trying to get their sea legs right, but I was disappointed because it certainly didn't match up with what I had as far as expectations for the Alamo Drafthouse experience. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is formerly it was a children's book series, and kind of like Goosebumps, I guess, if you want to make that as the example. And it's the story that's being told in this movie is basically about some kids who go into an old scary house, and there is a thing about the girl who died in that house who had a book of stories, and they all came true, and everyone associated died. And when our kids, led by Augie and Stella, go into the house, they find the book, and then the book starts writing new scary stories based off of people in their world, and chaos ensues from there. So this movie really disappointed me. I kind of went into it thinking that we were going to be seeing a Guillermo del Toro flick, because everywhere in Los Angeles, wherever you see an ad for Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, you see, Guillermo del Toro's name on it, and it's all put on there in a way that makes you think that this movie is directed by Guillermo del Toro. And once you walk, I didn't know until like minutes before I walked into the theater that it wasn't a Guillermo del Toro flick, and it was plainly obvious that it wasn't. It's the whole thing felt like there was some sort of blueprint, stashed far away in the studio of like how we're going to make a children's horror movie. And it didn't feel like there was anything new or original that was going on here. It was just all part of the same process that's going to end up with a film that is going to be mainly marketed towards kids, but also marketed towards the people who are now adults who used to read the books when they were kids. Now, I wasn't, the books weren't really a thing for me, so it's not my deal, but it just, everything felt so not even safe, like beyond safe. Just anything that they could do to not mess this up sort of felt like the MO going into the theater, and I just, it was very disappointing in that regard. I thought that performances throughout the whole thing were good. Zoe Margaret Colletti as Stella did a great job. I think Michael Garza as Ramon did a great job. Gabriel Rush as Augie was good. and I like Dean Norris a lot, but they didn't really ever get a chance to stretch his legs at all. He was just very. It could have been any actor who you recognized as the Dean Norris role, because there wasn't really any heft to what was going on. And then pretty much every other performance was clouded by the inability of the movie to make these people three-dimensional in any kind of way. And I'm not saying that anyone is not talented or not doesn't have the ability to do great things in the future. If you've seen Breaking Bad, you know that Dean Norris has it in spades. But when you don't give great actors the opportunity to do great work, then it's not their fault if they look bad at the end of it all. And to me, that sort of goes to how they decided to take on this project, because it just felt so safe, so beyond safe. They didn't want to ruffle any feathers. They didn't want to spend any time to sort of lay in any complexity to what was going on. It was just very like, we're telling a story, we have it all written out. We're going to use the same structure that has been used on a previous movie. Like, it just felt like all very like, we have a plan, but the plan was something that was written that doesn't work in today's age. So I mean, I guess if there's any complaints that I'm really lodging at this movie, it's the fact that it kind of treats kids as dumb. I don't know, like, and it's not like the kids in the movie, it's the kids who are in the audience that they're like kind of treating dumb. Because it doesn't, I mean, like, when I was a kid, when I was 10, 11 years old, I was watching these Stephen King horror movies, I was watching Carrie, I was watching The Exorcist, I was watching, like, legitimately scary things, and, it's not like it was easier to get those movies back in the day. It was a little bit more difficult to find a way to get them. It wasn't all instantly available to you on, some sort of streaming platform. So if I was 10 years old watching this movie, I don't imagine I would be that scared. It just didn't have the texture. Like, it felt so plain. It felt like regular vanilla ice cream, and it's just, I thought that there were a lot of elements in it that could have been scarier, but there wasn't anything that builds you to that moment. So, like, for instance, there was a part where, the teenage girl, Kathleen Pollard, Sarah, goes into, she has a zit, and she goes into the bathroom, and she's, like, trying to, like, pop the zit, and it's, like, this big, huge, like, nasty, disgusting thing. But it just never hit. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I was shaded by the inability for me to properly get into the movie because there were so many people talking around me. Maybe it was that it just didn't. I didn't have the same sort of connection to the original material to make me feel nostalgic for it. I just can't imagine, like, there's kids watching the most outrageous, scary things on YouTube right now of their own volition. Like, there's no, I don't get why. I think there's a part of older people, reviewers, who watch this and are either brought by the nostalgia of having seen the thing originally, or are brought by this preconceived notion of what horror movies were to kids when, based off of where they think they would have been in their mental acuity and ability to process this sort of thing as children. But it really bugs me when movies that are sort of designed more for kids, preteens, teenagers, like this sort of age range, just treats them like they're dumb. Like, I never. There were plenty of kids' movies that I watched as I grew up, but it was never like, I could sort of see through it. I could sort of see when somebody was trying to just, like, make something for kids that was easy for me to digest and understand, as opposed to something that, actually tried and actually went for it. Like, when I saw The Shining when I was a little kid, I was blown away by how well done it was and how scared I actually was. Like it all like hit the right notes. It just didn't. This one is, they're taking an old sheet music and they're playing the notes, but they're not playing the notes like a professional would. Like, it just felt very like, it felt very Muzak to music, if you can stick with that example. Let me put it this way, because I feel like this is the best way to sort of put it in a context of something that you could do right now. So, I haven't seen It Chapter 2 yet. I saw It Chapter 1, and that was really good. I enjoyed that a hell of a lot. And that was nicely scary. That was good. That hit the sweet spot of where you wanted to be on the horror scale. But I just don't see, if I had a child and I said, you want to go see a horror movie this weekend? I would not, knowing what I know now, and not even knowing what the hell It Chapter 2 is about, I would strongly recommend that you go see It Chapter 2. Because based off of where they were in the first movie, I can't imagine that they would lessen the horror amount. And it does not play dumb to the people who are watching it. So I would recommend that if you are listening to this and you have a child who's interested in horror and you're thinking about going to the movies this weekend, don't even bother with Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It Chapter 2 is out. That is a better way to go. If not that, watch a movie that is more in line with what the child would probably want on streaming, because there's nothing but a shortage of options available to you if you really want to go see a horror movie with a younger person. Like, it just, I don't know. I think this is a perfectly fine horror movie to watch, like, on TV as background noise, that sort of thing. The other thing too, I got in this conversation about horror movies in general, and I'm not as into the more recent vintage of horror movies. Something about the way that they're constructed, especially on the studio level, kind of bothers me. It just all feels very it's more about the marketing of, getting the Toledo Free Press to say, scariest horror movie ever made, and then putting that in an advertisement, and then putting it out there, and then getting somebody to come in, and it not being any good whatsoever, and the acting being terrible, and Patrick Wilson being in it for some reason, and blah, 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 blah. I just need, this movie does the same exact thing. All over town, billboards. Guillermo del Toro presents Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Guillermo del Toro, to the best of my knowledge, didn't actually do any. I mean, he wrote the script on this, and he produced this movie, but, it's not a Guillermo del Toro flick. Don't walk into this thinking you're getting the same sort of, magnificence and beauty that you were with The Shape of Water. It's just not happening. I don't know. I really think that there needs to be some sort of horror renaissance that comes along that really fixes a lot of the problems, because things are just not suitably stated for the age in which we live, and that feels a lot like what we're dealing with horror right now. It just feels like people are trying to figure out how to scare people and how to get people, because the great classic horror movies that I used to watch were great because I didn't know any better. I could walk into a theater and just think that, the house is haunted. I just thought houses were haunted. I didn't know one way or the other. But when you're older, or when you're, able to have internet access, even as a child, you know which of these things are real and which of these things feel real. And that's more concerning to me, the difference. This just doesn't feel like it's an authentic, it just felt like, well, we need to come up with some sort of reason for all the kids to be running and scared. It just didn't feel like it came from some great, not a great movie, any of them, not fantastic movies, but perfectly enjoyable movies were the Amity Horror series. Any of those movies felt the house really felt haunted. It really felt like something went wrong and caused the original family to lose their shit and have the son kill everybody, and then this new family moves in, and then there's sort of like they play on like the actual real things about like, you know, like how would you feel about moving into a murder house, and that's sort of like the feelings that you go through the first little bit of the movie. Then weird things start happening, and then you're in because you got there. They took the time to let you work through all the things that you were thinking about, like as to whether or not you would feel comfortable moving into a house where a bunch of people were murdered, and whether or not you thought there was anything that would transcend into your experience living in this house. And then things start happening, and then you're in the situation. You've already placed yourself in this situation. So that is the key problem, I think, here with this movie and a lot of other movies in that regard. It just doesn't do what it needs to do to place you in this moment and make you feel like any of these scares are real. You know what I like to tell in the dark? The leaderboard! This is the third time that I've gone to the Alamo Drafthouse, Los Angeles. I don't know. Might be in the penalty box. I have some I have a gift card. I have some passes for which I can go see more movies at the Alamo Drafthouse, so I certainly will. But I something tells me the next movie I see is not going to be at the Drafthouse, just because I need to change it up a little bit. I need to let them figure it out a little bit before I go back. On to the movie leaderboard. I mean, like, the thing that really bugs me about this movie is it's not bad. It's not like, you know, nothing about the actual creation, you know, like the cinematography is great and it feels like a horror movie and the sound is good and like blah, 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 blah. It just feels like, you know, somebody came along with like everything, or, you know, like, well, we already planned to make this movie and somebody already figured out the shot list and we have the script and they had already figured out what days they were going to shoot on and the production schedule and, you know, who everybody was going to be. Now we just need to figure out somebody to get it there. And then they called up Andre Overdal and now we're here. And I you know, that's not a slight against him. It's just like, I don't know, like, what went wrong here, but it just didn't all click. It just wasn't there. So I have to give Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark a rating. I would give it a 6.8. I mean, you know, if you have some sort of deep connection to the original material, then by all means, go see it. But I just don't think that this movie serves any particular purpose as far as, like, part of the conversation about horror movies and where we are in today's society and blah, 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 blah. And please, 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 for the love of God, whoever made those billboards, stop putting Guillermo del Toro here, because it's just not right. If I told you were going to go watch Michael Jordan or LeBron James, if you're going to go, you know, LeBron James is going to be at the gym this weekend just playing one-on-one against whoever shows up, and then you showed up and it was Brian Scabeline, you would be really fucking upset. You would just really be upset. It doesn't, you know, if LeBron was like, you know, like on video chat watching the whole thing at the same time, you would not feel like LeBron James had any part of this. And it just really, it really feels like getting the rug pulled from under you. Anyway, that's it. If you want more of me, you can go to my website, CoryBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/CoryBakerFilm, at LegendsTV5 on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. Please tell me if you want me to see anything else. I probably will go see It Chapter 2. I don't know if it's this weekend or if it is some other time. I'm finally getting to the end of my crazy work schedule right now. So hopefully I will have more time for reviews here on the regular schedule coming up. I thank you all for sticking with me and apologize for the delay. But yeah, just let me know and I'll go see something. And if you like this one, like it, share it, tell other people, subscribe to get more. That's it. Anywho, if you don't mind, I have to pop a large zit and have horrible, evil things come out.